Hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Salauda from Tosa Together. Welcome to a special edition of Tosa Talks, Building a Diverse, Thriving Community, an ongoing Facebook Live series proudly sponsored by our generous friends at Bostic. Tosa Talks features 3 monthly presentations designed to provide meaningful discussions around racial and social justice issues to support the work of building an inclusive anti-racist community. We are very excited for tonight's discussion with Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. This discussion is part of the Government Department and Organization track that generally streams live at 7 p.m. on the last Thursday of each month. In order to schedule this special presentation, tonight's conversation was recorded earlier today. We hope you will also join us for the Personal Stories track on the second Tuesdays and the Equity and Inclusion track on the third Wednesday of each month. Presentations are recorded and available for viewing and sharing on this Facebook page or on the Tosa Together YouTube channel. While there will not be a live question and answer session tonight, we still welcome and encourage you to add your thoughts and questions into the Facebook comments section during the presentation. Your comments are always valued, and we will try to respond to any questions in a timely manner. Now it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's host, Margaret Arney.
Hello, I'm Margaret Arney, and I'm a resident of Wauwatosa since 2020, and I'm a founding member of Tosa Together and also serve as the vice chair for the Wauwatosa Equity and Inclusion Commission. And I am delighted to have our county executive, who is no longer our brand new, been on the job for a little while. And so David, my first question is about your leadership journey. And when I read a little bit about you, you're from Milwaukee, and as a young person, you were part of a youth organization called Urban Underground. Can you just give us a story that could links what you did at Urban Underground with your current, leadership, how you got to where you are now?
Absolutely. So, I love talking about Urban Underground because I contribute a lot of my success, but also the change that happened to me as a young person to that youth development organization. And, I have to give a shout out to both Reggie and Charlene Moore, who are the co-founders. And so when you think about Urban Underground, it's a youth-led organization in partnership with adults. And they really gave us the ability to really tackle issues that directly affected young people. And while I was a junior in high school at Bayview High School, I got recruited to be a part of Urban Underground. I had no clue what I was getting myself into, had never really committed myself into anything outside of sports at that time. But one of the things that I learned it taught me, one, how to love outside of my own family. It taught me how to appreciate the things that, I really wasn't introduced to. And it really taught me the value of organizing. And when I first became a member of Urban Underground, one of the biggest issues that was affecting young people at that time that was near and dear to us was teen domestic violence. And so we actually created workshops as juniors, sophomores, and seniors in high school to teach other young people about domestic violence. But it also spun off to me doing even more with that organization. And I became a community justice coordinator where I created a Books Not Bars program. And so we do cop watches.
Could you tell me a little bit about that? What is that?
So Books Not Bars is where we wanted to educate the community on their rights and responsibilities when they ever encounter law enforcement, whether that's on the streets or in their home, because a lot of people do not know their rights. They don't know how to interact with police and what is quote unquote right or wrong when you have those types of interactions. And so we would actually police the police during traffic stops. And it was a way to really show the community that somebody was there assisting them and watching over them, because we've seen many of the violence, particularly between the police, law enforcement, and communities of color. And so in order to reduce that, we started to go out on our bikes. Many of us couldn't even drive at the time, to really, just have different interactions with young people across the city and teach them about their rights. And it's really contributed to me today because it helped pipeline me into like public allies. I was a public ally for a while.
You were, that's great.
And I always think about ABCD, right? And a lot of people say, well, what is ABCD? Well, that's asset-based community development. And when you come from a place, I grew up in the 53206 zip code, a lot of folks like to focus on the negative things that are happening. But when you think about what is good, what are the strengths of the particular neighborhood or community, when you build upon that, it helps to build that community and move them forward. And so, Urban Underground, Public Allies, those two organizations have really helped me with my leadership. And I never forget where I come from when I think about the decisions that we have to make and how they impact not only just everybody across Milwaukee County, but particularly communities of color, where we know that they have been historically underserved.
That's really cool. Well, I think one of the things that makes that's unique about the kind of leadership that you're doing is you really have to work across a lot of identities and across a lot of boundaries. What was one of the times where you learned about, or you really felt an ally relationship was working? Like with somebody who didn't look like you, somebody who wasn't from your neighborhood, somebody like a lot of people in Wauwatosa.
Right. So that's a great question. So I would say it's two things, right? I got introduced to it through Urban Underground. I lived on the north side of the city of Milwaukee my whole life. But getting involved in that program really helped me venture outside of my own comfort zone. And I remember I had the chance to actually start building relationships with the Southside Community Centers. When you think about UCC or the Latino Community Center back in the day, Voces de la Frontera, back then we were already talking about, similar to what we have now with our Fire and Police Commission, but we wanted to focus on a citizens review board to really give citizens that power. And so you had to work with individuals who don't necessarily look like you or don't necessarily believe in what you believe in, but having that dialogue to see how do you just move the needle a little bit further. But I would also say, I spent 7.5 years in the state capitol, 4 years as a legislative state senator, and 3.5 as a state representative. And I was chair of the Black Caucus as well as chair of the delegation. And when you think about Milwaukee, we only have very few legislators that make up the 132 legislators in the building. And then when you think about Black legislators or legislators of color, they didn't even represent 10% of the amount of legislators in the state capitol. So it forces you, in a sense, to start building relationships across the aisle. And I would say as an aide to then State Senator Nakia Harris-Dodd, I learned that a lot of people don't care until they know how much you care. And sometimes that ends with just building with an individual, building a relationship, trying to understand why they make certain decisions. And I think that's what helps to build coalitions that, we don't traditionally see. And I would say, and we're doing that here within Milwaukee County. When we talk about the 1% sales tax, so we have the revenues to make sure that we have a world-renowned park system, to make sure we have our Milwaukee County transit system, while also providing support and resources for all those critical services, right? And so it is extremely important, particularly when I ran for this seat, to bring that same passion here. I always say that I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, or union member or business owner, we all have a different perspective to bring to the table. And when you allow that to be thrown into the mixing pot, you'll never know what will come out of that. And most of the time it can be good because you realize how much you actually have in common and how much you actually share goals. Now, we may have different pathways of getting there, but a lot of the times we believe in the same thing, and we just have to get past the political rhetoric that we have been experiencing for the past couple of years, honestly.
Yeah. I often think about, Wauwatosa. I grew up on the east side of Milwaukee. I went to school on the north side. But when I moved back here as an adult with my husband and bought a home and everything in Wauwatosa, I realized that a lot of my neighbors were sort of orienting to the west rather than orienting towards Milwaukee. So we are part of Milwaukee County. We're fully Milwaukee County residents. But sometimes I get the sense that people feel like we kind of want to live in a dome in Wauwatosa, that they had a history of Wauwatosa being a place that's separate, more of a white space rather than a diverse or an African-American space. Do you feel that as the Milwaukee County executive that there's some that Wauwatosa kind of feels itself to be a little separate? How does that play out sometimes in your perspective?
I would say it's just with Wauwatosa. We have 19 different municipalities across Milwaukee County, and they all have their own unique personalities. But also think about when you go to Chicago and you visit a suburb in Chicago, and even if you don't live in a suburb, you may live in Oak Park, you still tell people you are from Chicago. And we need to build that type of pride here in Milwaukee County, because that's how we're going to make sure that everybody in this region has the ability to move up. And I truly believe that, I am the Milwaukee County executive, and I'm going to do everything that we can for Milwaukee County. But we also have to be a leader in this region. We are the largest economic engine of this state. And until we understand how we need to help us banding together, not only helps us out locally, but it makes us an even greater contributor to the state, to where we can actually get some policy changes and also possibly receive some of the resources that we absolutely need. But we have to be open to caring about one another, open to new experiences. When I visit Wauwatosa pretty often. I think about North Avenue, where you have so many shops and stores that people can dine into and just support mom and pop and locally owned entrepreneurs. You also have a lot of what is going on even with Mayfair. This is the shopping center. And so when we think about, for example, that 1% sales tax that is generated, not just here within, the city of Wauwatosa or in Franklin or Oak Creek or the city of Milwaukee, that helps benefit everybody, to make sure that when a tide rises, all the boats rise. We need to develop the mantra that when we all do better, we all do better. And it's going to take us actually stepping outside our comfort zone. And I would say that, with our vision and mission of Milwaukee County of becoming the healthiest county in the state of Wisconsin by achieving racial equity, these are the stakes that we're putting in the ground and the issues that we want to tackle head on. We cannot be afraid to have some of these conversations. I would say that, the pandemic has been both a curse and a blessing. And I think everybody has the curse that it has brought upon us. But when you think about the blessing, it has really put a pause. When this first happened in March of 2020, it's put a pause on everybody's life, to where we had to actually pay attention to what was going on. There were no more distractions. There were no more going to the movies or watching a football game or watching a basketball game. And so it was hard not to pay attention to what was happening to George Floyd in Minnesota, what was happening to Jacob Blake. And so many people are now understanding that, we have to have these tough conversations and move forward. But I will say that, it's not going to be easy. When you think about, we just celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. birthday and what he stood for. And he would tell you that the work that we're in related to racial equity, health equity, is not for the faint heart. And we all need to motivate each other at all points of this path that we're all on. But I truly think that we're going to get there as long as we are open, honest, and transparent within the process, and be open to changing even our own perspectives in the midst of it.
You've mentioned a couple of times an initiative to boost the sales tax from its current level for an additional 1%. And, I feel like as fellow residents of Milwaukee County, we in Wauwatosa have a stake in that will benefit from that as well. And I've also been impressed by your positive visions. Like, so when you see, the things that you want for the county, say we get, by some miracle, we get the resources. What are some of the favorite things that you would like to see happen in Milwaukee County that particularly that include us in Wauwatosa?
Well, Milwaukee County are at the top of a lot of the wrong lists, right?
Oh God, I know.
When you think about incarceration, the state of Wisconsin, we lead as one of the top states in African-American incarceration. When you think about infant mortality, we lead there. When you think about the Black-white education gap, when you think about income inequality, when you think about gender inequality, we lead in all of that. And if we can remove ourselves off those lists, by the time I'm done with my first time, I think that would be awesome. But I would say that I'm also, I feel sometimes I can be recklessly optimistic, not too reckless. I think that we can move the needle, and if not removing ourselves off this list, at least moving our rankings down to where eventually coming off these lists. We have to focus on the social determinants of health, how people live, what kind of access they have to education and healthcare, and access to jobs. And so, it's not going to be easy. And I'm always optimistic because I think about my own upbringing. I grew up in the 53206 zip code on 23rd and Burleigh, went to public schools my whole life, but also grew up in a family that struggled. My mother and father in the beginning stages of my life struggled with drug addiction. My mother and my father split up, and my mother couldn't take care of us as she would want to. It's not like she didn't have a job. She had a job. She wasn't getting enough hours to even pay rent. So I remember a time where we were evicted 3 times within a 2-year span. And I think about that in the back of my head. And one of the reasons why I ran for this seat, because I understand the work that the county board, the county executive, and all the employees of Milwaukee County put into serving these people, but also been on that end where I was the one being served. And so I want to bring that same passion, that commitment, that experience to this office so folks understand that, one, we can make it. No matter where you are, as long as, and I'm not going to say as long as you have, because I think that you have to have a lot around you. I don't credit my success to just myself. There are a lot of people, a lot of mentors who pushed me and encouraged me. But we need to be the exact same thing to all of the young people and young adults and to each other right here in Milwaukee County, because we always hear about what's bad. But there's a lot of good happening here within Milwaukee County. And that's why I'm optimistic. We have one of the most accessible beaches right in the world right here in Milwaukee County. When you think about cultural diversity, when you think about the restaurants, we have everything to offer for folks. But when you think about county services, we have everything from A to Z, from the airport to the zoo. So we want to invest not only in those who have historically been underserved, but invest in the health and well-being of everybody. And I think that's something to be optimistic about and something that we should always celebrate, particularly when we talk about moving a community forward.
I also noticed that you'd highlighted your partnership with the Wauwatosa school system in terms of educating the kids at Bell Phillips, mm-hmm. and also reducing the number of kids that are in detention. What are some of the other wins that you can either you see happening or you see on the horizon? What are some of those, particularly the equity and health wins?
Well, one, I would say, you mentioned a lot of it. We've been able to reduce the number of our young people that's been at the Lincoln Hills facility to where we've created about $1 million of savings from that. And we're reinvesting. And we're reinvesting in that.
I'm just going to have you pause. Just because that's amazing. Tell us about that savings. And
so $1 million is, for us, it's just like, wow, we didn't think that we could do this. And this process kind of started when I was at the state level trying to close down Lincoln Hills. And now I'm the county executive, and I also understand the impact that state government, state policy has on local municipalities. But that money is being reinvested into the community, related to many of our juveniles who may fall into some trouble or see some type of trouble, but also their families. So we've invested in a credible messenger program that's going to provide emotional support for many of these young people. And these are individuals who have had problems themselves in the past, who can talk to these young people about their own experience.
And that's called credible messengers. So like the person giving the message from the county is somebody that the family and the child can understand.
Absolutely. They're credible. We see what you've went through. We've seen the path. We've seen that you made it. And they're really excited about that. But I would also say, coming into government, 50, I'm not even sure what the percentage is now, but, half of my administration now is women, if I'm not mistaken. And we've brought on more people of color and still looking to do even more with this particular administration. But when you think about the pandemic, which has really sucked up all the air, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
We've really had to step up in those particular circles. So when we received our CARES dollars allocation, we knew that we needed to put dollars and really invest in community support programs. And we've put over $10 million to help people not get evicted, or help them with mortgage assistance. I want to say we've helped out over 1,500 businesses just recently. And we gave out $12 million for small business grants to help those businesses stay afloat in the middle of this pandemic. And there's more to come. There's a lot more to come, but we're also putting dollars into mental health. This pandemic has taken a toll, not on, because I would say that I'm a social butterfly. So this, for me, I love the fact that we can interact. But when you think about our seniors, the fact that they have not been able to utilize our senior centers, we've been providing meals for them, Meals on Wheels throughout the week and on the weekends to make sure that they can keep themselves safe. We've also invested in mental health. This has really exacerbated many of the insecurities that we have seen before. Mental health, we've seen the suicide rate spike. We've seen the homicides rate spike. We've seen the automotive incidents spike. And so we know that we have to be our best when people are at their worst right now and provide some type of relief, because, there's not too many people that people have access to in the middle of a pandemic. And so we're going to continue to do those types of things. But I would say that, we want to do more. And this kind of goes back to the 1% local sales tax option. If we want to invest in equity, if we want to invest in our parks, if we want to invest in transportation and invest in our community so they can become better, it's going to take us increasing the amount of revenue that we're receiving here in Milwaukee County. And in case folks don't understand, let me explain. Since 2012, we have seen about $320 million cumulative gap. So that's about anywhere between $25 and $30 million deficit here within Milwaukee County year after year for almost 10 years. And so when we think about how do we make sure that the community have access to not only our programs, but the services that they absolutely need, because our programs that are mandated at the state, but our most used amenities, when you think about Milwaukee County parks, the 150 plus that we have, our golf courses, or when you think about our Milwaukee County transit system, there's no dedicated funding for that. And so this 1% sales tax would not only help us make those critical investments, but it would also help us to relieve property taxes that have continued to increase as well. And so hopefully that in turn helps decrease property taxes like for yourself, but also help it decrease rent for some of these some individuals, because landlords aren't paying as much in property taxes. Now, I will hold my breath on that one, but we have to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to provide the relief that folks need. And Milwaukee County has been doing that for years, and we just want to make sure that we can continue to do that.
So how much money are we talking about, though? Because when I hear 1% of the sales tax, that doesn't connect to any, I don't know if that's like $10 billion.
You're right.
$6 billion. I hear 1% of the sales tax and I'm like, oh, okay. 1% sounds like I could probably handle that, but how much money is that we're talking about? And how much good can that do?
So about 1% sales tax could generate about $160 million.
Wow, that would make a really big impact.
And the thing about it is that it just doesn't affect Milwaukee County residents. As we spend money, we're able to capture that money here locally to spend and invest in our local priorities. But it also gives us a chance for folks who are coming from all over the state to come to a Brewers game or come to a Bucks game, or who wants to enjoy our Wisconsin Center District, our convention center, to also contribute to our local economy as well. And so
I'm sorry not to interrupt you, but it sounds like when you're talking about year-on-year deficits of around $30 or so million, that by increasing the sales tax and making sure that the sales tax is dedicated for important, county services, it's making up for lost time too. It's not, it's taking away the current deficit that's built in, and it's allowing for, growth. It's allowing to fill in some of the things that haven't happened for years now.
Absolutely. And the thing is that 1% sales tax doesn't just come to Milwaukee County. It goes to Milwaukee County and all the 19 municipalities. So we all get a cut from it. Yes.
Oh, well, because we in Wauwatosa have been really having a hard time because we don't want to increase our property taxes, but we you know, the prices never go down.
Right.
You know, here we've actually cut city staff members. We've cut some other things, trying to dedicate money towards equity issues and doing important things that we want to do, training our staff, things like that. But it's like, it's so hard when you need to, when you cut your capacity to do things because you have other goals. It's like we need to increase the pie a bit.
And Milwaukee County to the bone. Right? Milwaukee County has been cut to the bone. And so right now, if we don't find ways to bring in extra revenues without the 1% sales tax in the next 6 years, by 2027, Milwaukee County will only be able to invest in our state mandated services. So that would leave our parks to the wayside. That would leave our Milwaukee County transit system to the wayside, because those are not mandated for us by the state. Those are things that we pick up the tab for because we know that there's a need there.
So everybody gets on board. I mean, we'll come back to it. We still have some time still to talk, but I would really like, especially as we get to the end of our conversation, to have like a really clear call to action, because I'm sold, but I was sold anyway. So. But I think I think it's difficult because we get caught in conversations, we get kind of locked in. There's so many things to talk about, and there's so many issues, and it can be very confusing. But you know, if we want to help and get behind you on this, it would be nice to know how, like the immediate next step to do that.
Absolutely. You know, not every role is for everyone, but there's always a role for somebody. And when you think about what is happening right now, this is an all hands on deck approach. We need everybody to contact their legislators in some capacity, whether we're talking about state legislators, the city and local alder folks or city council folks, to your congressional member, to your United States senator and state senator. We need to let folks know, one, the 1% sales tax is something that is desperately needed in this region. One, so we can continue to be the economic driver and be a great partner with the state, but it also allows us to invest in our priorities. So whether you call, whether you write, email, send a letter, telegram, tweet, Facebook post, contact your legislator and let them know. But not just around the 1% sales tax. I mean, right now, you know, the Assembly is debating on whether or not they're going to repeal the statewide mask mandate, which puts a huge burden on places like Milwaukee County, because Milwaukee County, as unique as we are, is the only county in the state of Wisconsin that does not have a health department. We have 11 different health departments throughout. We have 11 different health departments.
We have a city. The city of Milwaukee has a health department. Then the municipalities have health departments, but the county doesn't.
Yeah, and some of those municipalities have combined health departments. So the North Shore combined health department. And so when we think about them eliminating the mask mandate, that puts us really in a bind, because we cannot institute a countywide mask mandate except if they're in county buildings on county property. And so we want folks to encourage folks to contact their legislator and say why this is important. But you're also, when you do these types of things, you know, you almost create a wild, wild west type of scenario where folks don't know what the laws are in each municipality. And whether depending on where you are, when you're across the street, you have to follow one law. And when you're on the other side, you have to follow another. And we need consistency. If we're going to stay ahead of this pandemic, mitigate this virus, and make sure that we are investing in recovery measures that's going to get us on the other side of this, a mask mandate definitely helps.
So I want to also bring back, and we will revisit that, because Rebecca has asked a question in the chat more about like the tax issue. Is there a particular piece of legislation you want us to be aware of? Where is it? If there's any kind of procedure around that? And we can get more detailed on that. But I want to bring us back to the county ordinance to advance racial equity and improve health outcomes, and hear from you, because I feel like you've really thought a lot about this. Like, what is the county's role in this, and what might Milwaukee look like when some of these things are implemented. And we are in that process too. In Wauwatosa, it's like we have an Equity and Inclusion Commission.
Okay.
Know that we're dedicated to equity and inclusion. We are signers as a municipality to the Region of Choice Pledge from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Association of Commerce. Mm-hmm. But it's so inspiring to see. It's like, what does it look like? Because we love these ideas, mm-hmm. but when it comes to what does it look like? What is it? What do we see that's different? What do we feel that's different? How do we do things differently? There's nothing like examples of people who are a little bit ahead of us on the road. So I would love to just hear more about that.
Well, in reality, it looks like one county, one Milwaukee. And kind of alluded to this, when you go to certain suburban areas in Chicago, they still say that we're from Chicago, right? And we need that same type of pride with Milwaukee County. And what that looks like is, you can go from one end, from Greenfield or Franklin, and go all the way to Brown Deer or Fox Point, and nothing changes. You see people, diverse, all ages, going to school, increased education, a county bus system that runs everywhere, on electric. Like, there's a lot that we need to do around climate change, around racism, in order to really tackle the issues that we're talking about. But in reality, and this looks like a utopia for me. This looks like a place where, people look at Milwaukee and say, you know what, that's where I want to go. That's the place, that is the next destination. And we should be the destination place of the Midwest. We are next to the largest body of fresh water in the world. And we have a lot to offer as just not just Milwaukee County, but as a state, when you think about all of our outdoor activities and things that you can just introduce not only yourself to, but your children as well. And so this, for me, looks like a place where when my daughter grows old, she says, I'm not leaving, I want to stay here. And I say that because growing up, in the city of Milwaukee, people used to always encourage me, you should leave the state. You should leave and go somewhere, go to college, and then come back. But they never tell you that when you actually leave, you never come back. And if you do come back, because there are folks who do come back, they ask themselves like, man, I wish I would have stayed, because we probably would have, I could have done so much more. There's much more that we could do. And we appreciate those that come back. But I want this to be a destination that people of color particularly look at and say, I want to go there, versus when they see this as a destination. Right now, we're leading the country as being the worst place to raise a Black child. No one wants to a place where they don't feel that they are welcome. And I want this to be the most welcoming, whether you are Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, woman, man, they, disabled, able. We need you to be a part of this community and contribute, because it's going to take all of us coming together to make this world a better place. And it starts right here in Milwaukee County.
So when, I know that you're working on this, even though more resources are needed and coming, is there, maybe one thing that that you're excited to hear people report to you about in this area?
One thing, well, I will say, in the middle of this pandemic, what has given me great joy is knowing how many families that we were able to save, and keep within their home. When we think about the eviction and prevention dollars that we were able to invest, for me, it's like, we don't even understand how much money we saved on the back end, whether we talk about the court systems, whether we talk about the money that we spend on our homeless population. That is one of the things that I've always, and plus it's near and dear to me because I've been evicted as a young person. And so I always love hearing that. But also, I love hearing the fact that when I talk to the staff here in Milwaukee County, whether we're talking about our department heads all the way down to our frontline workers, they are excited about the mission and vision of Milwaukee County. And that means a lot to me, being the leader here and really tackling this head on, because I can't do this alone. And I'm not going to do this alone, because I don't think, it's an African proverb, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, bring others with you. And seeing how many folks are And I'm not bringing them with me. They're coming. They're saying, no.
They're joining up with you. Yeah.
We're going to make this happen. And to see the enthusiasm and the commitment from everybody here in Milwaukee County when we talk about racial equity, it lets me know that we're doing the right thing. Milwaukee County was the first to talk about racism being a public health crisis. And we've seen 100 other communities across the country doing the exact same thing. And so everybody's looking at us to be the blueprint. We're paving this road right now. And so we are excited to know that many people are also picking up this issue and tackling it head on and looking to us for guidance. And we'll be the first to say that we don't know everything. We're walking this and building a plane as we fly, but we know that we have to start somewhere. And I'm really excited, that so many people are calling on Milwaukee County, and not just across the country, but even here locally. When we think about our Office on African American Affairs, they've been working with Tosa, they've been working with South Milwaukee, Brown Deer, about how to tackle racial equity in their own perspective communities.
Well, that's exciting. Did you get a chance to take a part in some of that training along with some of the county the county supervisors and things? Because we heard really good things about that here in Wauwatosa, and that's something that Wauwatosa has taken on, is like offering training, very broadly and really like, so we have a common way of talking about what is racism, what do we even mean by equity and inclusion? Why is this important?
Well, I would say I went through and we require all of our new employees to actually go.
You did?
CA Ending Racism class.
How did that go? Did you like it?
Loved it. And it wasn't my first time. This was definitely not. and I tell people all the time, like, even though it's not my first time going through this, you still learn something along the line every day. We all still have our own biases, and we know sometimes we can check them, but sometimes we can't. But going through this helps us understand ourselves, but also to build relationships with other folks, to talk about race the way that we should, to talk about the experiences that each individual goes through. And so I would tell anybody to contact the YWCA. Paula Pennebaker and Martha Berry there do an excellent job. Oh my God,
Martha Berry did our keynote for Tosa Together's Black History Celebration last year. So
that's awesome. No, they did a great job. I was a part of the cohort. I think some people were a little nervous because they were like, "Oh, I'm doing a one-on-one."
Oh no, I got that wrong. She was here doing a talk for our all-city read.
Okay.
To be right around the same time, but I know I've worked with Martha. She's
Martha's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing. So we have just a couple more minutes, and I have a kind of personal question for you.
Okay.
What do you do to ignite your fire in the morning? Like something bad happened, like something, like in Roots, they used to play like the bad music, and it's like, but now it looks like it's going bad. Do you have something that you do to help yourself kind of get the spirit back?
Well, when I won this office in May of last year, I was talking about health, talking about equity, and I really started to focus on my own health. And the more I started to work out every morning, the more I realized that I was relieving stress and becoming more healthier. But I'm also, I live in a house full of women. I have my wife, Erica, and I have 3 daughters, Alyssa, Ava, and Autumn, 13, 3, and 1. And,
oh my.
And they light the fire under me every time. When I think about why I used to do this as a young person, it was because I didn't want anybody who grew up in the same situation as me to fall through the cracks. But now when I think about what I am doing, and now that, I can look at Vice President Kamala Harris and I can look at my girls, I look at them and they really light that fire under my belly, because I know the world that they need to have in order to make it as Black women as they get older. And so I'm extremely passionate about making sure that whatever I've had the access to, I want them to have even greater access to. And because our children, a lot of times we say they are our future, but they are our now. And if we don't invest in them now, we will lose them in the future. And so we have to do everything that we can to support them. They light that fire under me. And honestly, being able to talk to school groups as well. As a young person, I was inspired to get involved in community organizing. I was inspired to get involved in politics. And it's hard to aspire and be inspired to be something that you've never seen before. And it has always brought, great joy for me to interact with other young people and other people who are just interested in not only themselves, but others around them.
Well, this has been delightful. I want you to give us our final call to action. What do we tell Wauwatosa what we can do to support you, to support Milwaukee County and the things you want to have happen? Give us our call to action, and then I will round us out.
Well, as we continue to talk about the resources, not just to make sure that we can get over this pandemic, but making sure that Milwaukee County continues to be solvent and provide those critical resources, please contact your elected official, your representative, and let them know that you're for Milwaukee County. But also, I would tell everybody, and I love to talk about the 3 T's, right? Because I think everybody has something to give. And the 3 T's are this. The first T is treasure. A lot of the times people don't have the time to do a lot of things, but they want to give to different causes. You can always do that, and that's very helpful. The other T is time. If you don't have the dollars, you can always volunteer and put in the work in order to get policy changes, make policy changes that we want to see, whether we're talking about the state level, local level, or federal level. And the other thing is your talents. A lot of folks have a lot of talent out there, and you can utilize your talent to encourage and inspire others to get involved in what we need in our own backyard. And I highly encourage you to give out those 3 T's as much as you can to benefit not only yourself, but this community. But also continue to have the tough conversations about race, about what this future holds. Because the more we talk about it, the more it's in the forefront of the decisions that we have to make on an everyday basis. I'll be the first to say that, I understand why people aren't paying attention to politics sometimes. When you're struggling to put food on the table, to keep a roof over your head, your car just broke down. You don't know how you're going to get to work. The last thing on your mind is necessarily government. But when you think about it, this is, whatever city you live in, whether it's the city of Wauwatosa, city of Milwaukee, or Milwaukee County, local governments affect our everyday lives. And it's extremely important that we find ways to improve local governments, because in the end, it's going to improve our own health and well-being.
Thank you. And I really appreciate your time. All right, so I'm going to wrap us up.
And thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks everyone for participating in this Tosa Talks. We look forward to hearing your comments, to reading your comments. Please feel free to follow up with us and write those inspiring messages to your state level representatives and tell them that Milwaukee County is important for all of us. And again, please join me in thanking County Executive David Crowley. We really appreciate your sharing your experiences.
Thank you.
We will be sure to respond to the comments that come to this as in a timely manner. And we want to offer a special thank you to our generous friends at Bostic, whose support makes the entire Tosa Talks series possible. Please plan on joining us again in February for a series of Tosa Talks presentation honoring Black History Month. February will also feature Tosa Together's annual Black History Month celebration on Thursday, February 18th. It's all virtual this year, and keep your eyes open for opportunities to submit or present content for that celebration, as well as for upcoming registration information. You are always welcome to reach out to Tosa Together through our Facebook page, our website, or by emailing us directly at tosatogether, one word, @gmail.com. So this is Margaret Arney with Tosa Together. It's been my pleasure to be here with our guest, David Crowley, as well as with all of you. Thanks for being part of Tosa Talks and our mutual effort to build a diverse and thriving community. All right.